Happy Thursday, y'all. I've been at a photography conference all week and been sharing my stories on my stories for those that follow me. But I'm super excited to bring on my guest tonight. Oh, there she is. Well,
Sorry, there we go.
hey, you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. It's been running around today.
I've been
Okay.
working all day, so
All right. Well, I am so glad to have you on. We'll get started. Welcome to Let's Go Live. I'm Gigi Murr, and I have with me YA dystopian romance author Hilary Lisee. Welcome, Hilary.
hi.
I am so glad that we finally met because I feel like me and you have known each other on DMs and in our groups just about forever.
It seems like that.
It does. I was trying to go back. I was like, I have known you, or through social media for I think almost 2 years, and I'm just like, why have we not connected sooner than that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I
So,
think it's been a long journey for me getting to the point where I'm published now, so
and I'm ready to
yay.
dive into all those details. So tell me just at the very beginning, what is YA dystopian romance mean to you? So explain to those that are dialing in and our listeners what it is.
So to me, YA dystopian romance is it's obviously young adult. It's for it doesn't have a lot of the trigger warnings that would be happening with an adult novel. And it is.
Pause you right there. So when you say it doesn't have trigger warnings, is it the trigger warnings under the dystopian genre or the romance genre?
I think it's more under the romance genre.
Okay.
Um, there are still some things that, as far as dystopian is concerned, that I feel like still have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like under the dystopian genre, it would be there's something has changed in the government or something apocalyptic has happened, and it's the recovery or it's the after of that is sort of that's the dystopian part in my view.
Girl,
And
I tell
then
her all the time, we are in the after part of the dystopian because that's what lockdown was and that's what COVID was. And that was
you've
super
got a
dystopian.
point. You've got a point. And then as far as the romance side of it is that's where the YA more comes in, is because it's like not as there isn't any scenes of that could be sort of sexy.
Yeah. So it's more like
I guess.
close, like Hallmark kiss and next scene.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell us about you have your debut novel. It released
Yes.
in June, I think June 24th, right? If I have that
June
right?
June
It is
15th.
15th. Okay, I was
Yeah.
close.
You were so close.
And you're writing your second one. So let's start with the first one. Tell everybody the title
So
and what it's about, but no spoilers.
okay. So I have it right
Ooh,
here. It's Tribulation.
yes.
It's called Tribulation. And it is loosely based on the Christian ideal of, or Christian idea of the rapture. So
Oh, okay.
billions of people disappear overnight. Nobody knows where they went. Nobody knows what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so then after that happens, it sort of takes place when it's happening, and then it goes back and forth between 4 years later, and it surrounds Charlotte is the main character,
Okay.
and she is I think I want to say she's 10 when it happens. And her mother and father don't disappear, but her father is in the military, and he gets called up to help with the chaos after of this thing happened.
After the
And so she's left with her mother, and her mother is 9 months pregnant.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, with her little brother. And so it's her story of how it starts, and then her survival afterwards. And so I do have a little spoiler, because I kind of can't tell the story without it.
All right.
And it's her mother dies in giving birth. So she's left to raise her little brother. And so this is this 10-year-old who has no clue how to do anything.
Correct.
And she's left to survive with nobody. Well, I can't say nobody. She does have her best friend and his father.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the romance part. Is that there's a romance brewing between those two.
Okay.
So it's
still 10, or does she get older before the
she gets older. So there's I know, right? So she, yeah, that would be a little bit like, what?
Not promoting that.
No. So it's her best friend, and they've known each other since they were little, and childhood sweethearts, yes. And his mother disappears in the big disappearance that nobody knows what's happening, and so it is it's sort of her journey of self-discovery and figuring out how to survive, and when there's no electricity, there's no grocery stores, there's no vehicles, gas goes away. Just basically they're plunged into the 1800s.
I was gonna say, now we're in like historical fiction.
Kind of, yeah, but it's not set in historical fiction. It's not set in history, so that's why it couldn't really go historical fiction. But it sort of mimics that and there's the houses are all, decaying because they don't have a whole lot. And so then the problem comes because the government that takes over is called the Collective. And they're not the best of they're a bunch of rich people who think that they know best. And so
Okay, like every dystopian, true dystopian. I mean, we saw that in oh my gosh, we saw it in all the whole Divergent series. We saw it in Hunger Games. So I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a genre expectation when you write dystopian.
Yes, it kind of is that there's a government aspect that's not a good government aspect.
Yeah, the controlling class is always a little bit evil.
Yes, just a little bit. But she doesn't know much about them because it's actually set in Maine, and they're in the middle of nowhere. So she doesn't really know a whole lot about the Collective other than the daily radio broadcasts. So there's like a daily radio broadcast that goes out and tells about all the disappearances and all the how they're trying to help make it better. And so it just follows her story, and then there's the Watchers, and the Watchers are the enforcers, and they all of a sudden appear in the town at the town market, and Charlotte has no idea why they would even be there. So it's they're figuring out like who the Collective is and the Watchers, and I can't really go beyond that because then I'm going to be giving away way too much.
No, let's not do that. So let me ask you, on this, in writing Tribulation, what made you even pick that dystopian genre in the first place?
So I always loved, I loved reading The Hunger Games and Divergent, and that was just like that was my genre. I loved reading it, and I loved hearing all about it. The Princess Trials, and there's all kinds of different ones out there that I just loved reading them, and I loved discovering like what did they change, what did they make that was different, did it make it better, did it make it worse, things like that, and just what we do to make it better, or what could we do to make it worse. And so I really love that part. And I've always loved romance. That's just like my go-to genre in any romance in any form, actually.
When you decided to write this, did you have in mind that you're going to become an author, or because you love the storyline so much, were you writing it just for yourself to kind of explore those themes?
I always wanted to be an author. And as a child, when I was younger, I used to write a lot. I wrote all the time. I wrote poetry, I wrote stories, I wrote little things down. And then I went into high school and I was asked to write stories, and the teachers didn't really like my stories, or they didn't like my how I wrote or what I wrote about or anything like that. And I always walked away with this idea that maybe I'm not a good writer.
Oh,
Maybe it's just
Hilary,
me.
I have heard that so many times when I interview authors, that there is someone early on that killed their creativity. And I feel like that we would have a lot more authors if that didn't happen, because it seems to be a common theme in education.
It does. And being a teacher now,
Hmm.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what can I do to make them, feel like
Yeah.
successes?
Well, and it's a fine line, right? Because you want to have constructive criticism that will better their writing and the writing craft, but you don't want to kill it. You want to do,
Right.
yeah, did you? Hmm.
Exactly. I don't want what happened to me to happen to somebody
No.
else. And so um then I got to college, and I was a later college person. I went to the military, and I did the military thing for a while,
Thanks.
and I
Respect.
know.
Thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you. And then I got out and I was married, and my ex-husband went into the military. So then I was the military dependent for a little bit. So it was just like I didn't get to college until my probably middle 20s.
Hmm.
And I went to college and I had to take, of course, those English composition classes. And I was dreading them because I thought I was a bad writer.
Oh,
And
yeah.
thankfully, my teacher was amazing. And she was like, "Why aren't you writing more?" She was like, "You are an amazing writer. Why aren't you writing more?" And I was like, "Well, because of this, and this." And I'm like, I can't be that good. But I realized I was that good. But it wasn't until then I was a mom for a long time, and it wasn't until my children grew up a little bit, and my daughter came to me, um, and I had written a couple of stories that were adult romance, and she couldn't read them because she wasn't old enough.
I was gonna,
And I thought,
that was going to be my next question, but yes, proceed.
yeah, so she couldn't read them. She knew I had been writing them,
Mhm.
but she couldn't read them. And then she was like, "Why don't you write something that I can read?" And that's where sort of I got into the YA genre, because I was like, you know what? I want my children to be able to read this, and I also want my students to be able to read this, because I work with high schoolers, so I want them to be able to read what I write and see that it is possible
Well,
to do this even in later life.
yeah, there's so many benefits. I mean, you're a role model, you're putting your money where your mouth is. And then you have also kind of like a little built-in fan base, because children, they really do want to naturally root for you. They do want
Mhm.
our leaders, if they're good leaders, I should say, they do want them to do well. And so I can imagine you have plenty of ARC or beta readers when the draft comes around. publishing?
I had a lot of beta readers. I'm still learning the publishing world and trying to figure out how to get ARC readers because I didn't have a whole lot of success, and I think that possibly didn't help with the sales at first.
That is a big challenge that many authors face. Even we had an anthology that came out the middle of August, had 100 and something people sign up, I think 150, which sounds great. But then, 50 leave reviews. So it's a 1/3 ratio. But I mean, it's what you didn't know, but correct. Finding ARC readers and having them read and commit all the way through the review process is very challenging for a lot of authors.
And finding it on a budget is even worse because I don't have the money to be able to go and put it into one of those services that gives ARC readers. So all these Instagram people who find books and want an ARC read for authors are usually getting them from like NetGalley and places like that, and I just don't have the money to be able to put my novel out there.
Gallery is pretty expensive in my opinion. I know Book Sirens is a little bit cheaper. I think Story Origin may be another one.
Okay.
But most authors that I see, they do their Google Doc form, they hang it out there and they do a call to action, social media. I find that to be like one of the most common, and then it's just free.
Yep. I'm actually a part of a few ARC reader Facebook groups where I ARC read for other people, and then other people would ARC read for me. And then I'm also a part of the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Alliance. So they have a monthly book club, and I was actually chosen to be on the book club for the month of August. So that was very nice. So I got some reviews that way.
What? That is beautiful. I mean, that is so nice to be chosen by your peers.
Oh, I know, right? I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And I also in August was chosen to be a part of a book fair here in Maine. And it was the Maine Authors Book Fair. And I was able to go down and meet with some readers and sell my book and just engage with readers. And I actually made an amazing author friend a couple of amazing author friends while I was there. So that was really good for me as far as networking, and then also getting to see fans and tell people about my book. So it was really awesome that way.
That is lovely. On Tribulation, how many words is it roughly, or how many pages? And then how long did it take you to write? Take us through the writing process.
So the page count is actually, I'm just going to look at it. In the hard copy, it's 155. I think it's 147 in the ebook. I want to say it's 147 in the ebook. And then 155 in the in the hard copy. And it took me, I want to say, almost 3 years to write.
Really?
Yes. And it wasn't because it was partially because of like I always put so much on myself. So I'm a full-time teacher, and I have 2 amazing children, and and I have a husband, and I have a house, and I have all those things, and I always seem to overload myself and not give myself enough time to write. And so I got my first draft done it took me probably about 6 months to write my first draft. And then I sent it out to alpha readers. And I did get a few alpha readers, and I did actually was able to get some really good feedback. And then it took me almost a year to get my beta copy out to another round of readers, just because of the time constraints. Like I didn't have time to spend, and that's the part about being a part-time author. I feel like it's a part-time author because I'm not really. I don't have my full-time job is not writing, unfortunately. I would love that. But I can't, in today's world, I can't afford to. rightful to do it now.
Well, and I mean, your children want to see their mom, and you have a spouse who likes you, so all good things.
Yes.
So it took you a year to incorporate like the rewrites and alterations. It makes sense though, because if you have really good alpha readers, their input is so critical, and sometimes you get a little bit too much feedback. Then you have to parcel through, what am I going to accept, what am I not, and then how do I rewrite sections to make it work.
Exactly. And then I was able to, one of the biggest parts was they wanted to hear more about, so at first I had Charlotte being called Charlie after and Charlotte before. And so there was this big dramatic scene where she became Charlie.
Okay. And that didn't work?
And it didn't really work because most of my alpha readers were like, we didn't understand where Charlie came from. It wasn't until halfway through the story that we realized that Charlotte and Charlie were the same people.
Oopsie.
And I'm like, ooh, yeah, I might need to fix that. So I ended up just sticking with Charlotte the entire time, so that people would not be confused by Charlie, Charlotte. And I wouldn't have to explain that dramatic scene in the very beginning, because that was sort of like that things led up to that. And if I'd had that scene in the very beginning, it just wouldn't have worked. And so I had to do that. And then I had a bunch of major rewrites.
That's a big restructure though, because if you had it in the beginning and now you have to move it where it really belongs in the middle, that's quite a bit of rewriting.
It was quite a rewrite process. And
I think when we get, alphas, I have a few alpha readers, but it's so interesting to me when they read your works. They can clearly see through things that it makes sense to us, but then gaping holes that we don't even see.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I loved about it, because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see this. I didn't even realize this. So then I had to restructure everything and put it where it, put that into the middle where it belonged, that scene. I still wanted to keep the scene, but I decided to not change the name like I had originally. And so that meant I had to change a lot of different things, because in the book, Charlotte's little brother is a toddler. He's like 3 or 4, and he speaks with a speech impediment, so it's Charwet. And so I then had to go through. It used to be Charwee, and I'm like, I had to go through and fix all of that, and then make sure I didn't miss anything. So it was quite a process, but it counted, because when I got my beta reader feedback back, there that gaping hole and the hole, and there's a bunch of holes. There's some holes in the plot, because there was some plot holes later in, as far as like building up to the climax of the story,
Right.
that they didn't feel like it built the way it needed to.
And so your betas were the ones that found that?
Yes. Yep. My betas were the ones that found it.
How did you locate your beta readers? Were they people in your circle of influence, or did you reach out to people online? I
reached out to quite a few people online, but I also have some really awesome friends and like family that really support me, and they did some beta reading for me. But I also did actually reach out and do a couple of freelance beta readers online through Fiverr. And it's something that I also I'm on Fiverr, and I do editing and beta reading and alpha reading myself. So I was like, well, I might as well try out the service that I am on. And I tried that out, and I did get one really successful. I reached out to 2 people, and I had one really successful beta reader that her reader report was like amazing. She did a chapter by chapter, like reader, like first read. So like what were the impressions? Huh?
Yeah, because not only do you benefit as an author receiving that in, but it's also gives you an insight as to what her deliverable is and how you are comparable in that Fiverr market.
Exactly. So that actually like changed the way I approached my own beta reading reports.
Double beta.
And it helped me out because I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. Having this chapter by chapter first read was just her first impressions, her fresh impressions, no like thought process behind them, just this is what I'm thinking when I read this.
Yeah.
And
no, I use Fiverr for some of my other vendors, and I really like it. I've had good experiences on there. So when I tell new and aspiring authors when they're trying to find help or a team, I'm like, you should look there. I didn't have a team at that point, and so I picked up some really good talent. I have 3 of them on my team that are from Fiverr.
Yep.
And the thing I like is that some of them are on the other side of the world. So while I'm sleeping, they're working. And then when I'm working, they're sleeping. So it's almost like you get 24 hours of work.
I know, right? It's awesome.
It is.
I have some really great authors that have come back to me multiple times on the service for editing services. So it's been great that way. And I get to read some amazing novels from people. I have one that's from Germany, and she comes back for to Americanize her stories.
Nice.
So
okay, so how do people find you on Fiverr?
So I'm Hilary Lisee 82 is my handle, and they can find me on Fiverr. And one of the things that I was adamant about when I was setting up my service was that it was going to be so my editing services, they're not per word. It is, I do flat rate fees because I know how much it costs to edit. You know, for myself, I've had to shell out quite a bit of money for editing services. And so I was like, you know what? There are a lot of authors out there that can't afford to have a professional editor look at their work, and they need that. They need to have a professional editor look at their work. And so I offer my services so that even the first time authors out there that are just need that professional look can afford it.
I love that. That's wonderful because you're right. Between book covers and paying for editing, it is the biggest investment. And you understand on both sides why that's important and why people need to charge what they need to charge. It really is like quality workmanship, and it's so detailed. But at the same time, there's so many that can't afford, $600 to $1,100 editing per book.
Exactly. I did have to up my prices recently, but I still tried to keep them reasonable. And just because of the amount of time that I'm sorry.
I have people that reach out to me for editing, so now I know where to send them.
Absolutely. Every little bit counts.
Let's dive into book 2, which is currently underway. Is it a sequel to the first one?
It isn't a sequel to the first one. It is actually a different series that I'd actually started before I wrote Tribulation.
Oh, okay. So what made you switch it up?
So I had actually originally put it down because of the whole COVID situation. Most people, they picked up writing more, but I wasn't able to, between homeschooling basically and and I was working full time and everything else. It was just I couldn't do it. So I had to put away my writing. It's called Project Lightning. Well, it's actually called Zeus Colony. I renamed it recently, so it's a Project Lightning series, and it is about Brenna, and her name is Brenna, and she is it's set in Boston about 300 years in the future,
Oh, okay. I love Boston. And
Yep.
it just
And after this huge war that broke out basically in present day, what would be present day, this huge war broke out and it burned part of the city. And the government reformed into colonies based upon sort of Greek mythology.
girl, you
So
put that all together. You're
I
like,
know, right?
oh, let me mix it all in.
How do
Okay,
I put it all together? um,
unique. Where did all that come from? Like, yeah.
so it really came from, so it's a military based colony, and it really came from so it had been the idea popped into my head after I'd read the Percy Jackson series
Oh, okay.
by Rick
What's that one?
by Rick Riordan.
Oh, okay. I got that wrong. Go ahead.
No, it's
Sorry.
fine. And it so it's basic. Percy Jackson is about a boy who is a demigod, and he's half god, half human. And so I just read that series, and I dove deep into mythology, into Greek mythology, and just sort of surrounded myself with Greek mythology. And I was like, oh, I wonder what it would be like if we brought back Greek mythology in the future, sort of like brought back aspects of it.
Mhm.
And so it sort of swirled around my head a little bit, and I was like, that would be interesting. And so the government broke into colonies based upon upon the Greek god figures, and this is Zeus Colony. And Zeus is the leader god, god of the sky, and he is, so this colony, their ideals is based upon military and leadership.
Okay.
So they train the military leaders, they train the high level council members, they train that's basically what they do, and it's a military colony. So I brought in my military history, so my sort of that aspect of military. And so Brenna is being raised in Boston by her aunt and uncle, and she has no memories before the age of 10.
Okay.
So she has no memories whatsoever, and she doesn't even remember her parents, and so she then she's trying to figure out who she is, because without these memories, like her formative memories, she's got the memories for the last 6 years, but she doesn't know who she really is. She doesn't know who
So is it
she's supposed
her
to be.
going on a journey to recover them, or is it moving forward with Zeus?
So it's her journey to sort of recover her memories, but also to figure out who she is. So to sort of, originally her goal is to put aside her lost memories and just be who she thinks she's supposed to be. So she's taken into this top secret military group called Project Lightning. And it's there that she finds out that her mother and father were actually agents of Project
Oh,
Lightning.
okay. I was thinking coming of age, but no, you went a different direction.
I kind of went a different direction. I like to do that. I was thinking coming of age too, but at first, but then it just didn't work.
We're
And so
in the process of this one. How far in are you?
I am about 3/4 of the way through the first draft.
Mm-hmm.
I still have I still have struggled to find time to sit down and write, so I have to do more of that. So I'm about 3/4 in, and I'm getting to the point of I'm like at the point of the climax of the story right now,
But
which is
isn't it
really
my favorite part to write to me?
it.
It's just build up, it's the tension. it's all the world building, and now it's all finally coming together.
It's all coming together. And so this one is actually a dual perspective. So originally, when I first started drafting, I had only come from Brenna's perspective. Yeah. And then I realized that I was missing so much of the story because I didn't bring her romance in, her love interest, I should say.
Yeah.
Into the story. And so I was missing so much, and there was so much that wasn't being said and wasn't being taken care of, and it sort of felt like they were like wispy things out there flapping in the wind. And so
well, readers love it too. Most readers love, dual or multiple POVs. Not that we could in life. We would love to head hop if we could in life, but we can't. But we can do it in our books.
Yes, we can in our books. So Caleb is not Caleb. Is it? I can't remember his name. Oh my goodness.
It'll come to you later on tonight.
It will. Yeah. But anyway, so he's she has her love interest, and he gets his say in it, and how he gets into this sort of story and gets brought into this world of Brenna. And so she starts having she has dreams that are more like nightmares, because she wakes up having anxiety, like almost an anxiety attack. She wakes up in a sweat, and it starts having these just dreams of like that actually are her memories trying to come back.
The repression of her memories. Ooh, I like it.
Yep.
Do you read
and so
know that as it's occurring, or do you just take them on this journey where they're discovering while she's discovering?
I think it's mostly they're discovering as she's discovering. So she's had these dreams her whole life, but it was the same dream every night. And while it was scary, it became comforting, because she thought, well, maybe there is something out there. Maybe I do have a mom and dad that did actually love me. That even though it's sort of a scary, nightmarish dream, it was almost comforting to her. And then the dream starts to change
as more memories emerge,
as more memories come in.
Nice.
So
you get to the end of the book, do we know as the reader everything that's happened to her? Oh, it's almost like a mystery too.
It is kind of like a mystery too, because it adds in. So the one of the things about Dystopian that I really love is that there's usually some sort of advanced technology
of course,
that's involved. And so we bring in, she's like almost a tech master, but she has no idea how she knows this stuff.
See, I love those. When it unravels, I'm not a big fan of where we knew all along, like we're in the author's head. I really like that slow discovery and unfolding of stories. That's my preference.
That is my preference.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of readers that way.
Yep.
So do you have an idea when you want to try to go to publish this?
I'm hoping that I can get the draft done by the end of October. That's my goal.
That's only
is to try to get. I know. That was my goal last month, so I'm hoping I can hold it together and get that done by the end of October, and then I'll send it out to my alpha readers, and hopefully maybe by next summer.
That'd be exciting. Are you able to take the summers off? Because I know that you are a special education teacher, so I don't know if you have summers off.
So I do have summers off, thankfully. I work for a public school, so it is very helpful to work for a public school instead of working for working as a behavior specialist or things like that, where they don't get summers off.
Yeah, my niece is a special education teacher here in Texas, and they get an abbreviated summer because the children here with special needs can go up to the age of 21, and there's only 1 month that they're off. Other than that, the state has them in 11 months of care. Mm-hmm.
That sounds very familiar. I used to work for a day treatment school. And
Oh,
so basically it was a behavioral
yep.
school. Um, and it was a year-round school. So I would have a week off in June and a week off in August. And the rest of the time I was in school other than the typical holidays. So I'd have the typical holidays off. I'd have the typical Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks and like spring break and those types of things. But
Right.
I didn't get the summer off. I'd have 8 weeks of school in the summer. And it was all day, every
Mm-hmm.
day, instead of abbreviated like
Yep.
normal.
She
And
is
so
at school like you, but if you had a summer launch, you could do all that fun like graphics and your a big
Mhm.
release. And I mean, it can be really, really fun if you're able to make it summer, because I know for you, with all the things that you have, the responsibilities, it's hard to do a big splashy launch during the school year.
It is. And it's hard to keep up with everything. One of the things that I'm like, okay, I need to do more um, stories and more reels and more Instagram posts, and I have to do all of that. But then I'm like, but I also need to do lesson plans, and I need to do grading,
Life.
and my kids need supper, and I need to do laundry.
Oh no, I feel social media is definitely like a full-time job. And there are some people though that are truly gifted at that. There's some authors that just, I mean, the ideas just percolate up about this reel and that story and this TikTok and everything. I am not one of them, but
I am not
I
either.
do admire those. I'm like, dang. And some people just, I have one author, she likes to make graphics just for
Hmm.
fun. When she's had a bad day, she's like, I'm just sitting around making graphics. That's how she decompresses. I'm like, can you make some for me?
Yes, right. So I've actually contemplated because my daughter is she's actually a military dependent, and so she is out in California, and she's married, and her husband is in the
She's
Navy.
an adult now. We went from where she was
She's an
really,
adult now.
now she's an adult.
Ye-
Did you time change?
Yes. So I was like, you know what? You don't have a job right now. So do you think that maybe you can make me some social media posts? Because she's pretty good at it. Um,
Of course
it's just the
she does,
gen.
because it's her generation. It's just how they view the world, how they think. They just get it. And I feel like I'm that old grandma trying to be like, oh, help me figure out this VCR. So yeah,
Yep.
especially if she does have all that time on her hands. Is she in 29 Palms?
No, she's actually in Point Magoo, Port Hueneme, which is just in like Ventura, Oxnard. It's a naval base
Oh,
up there. And, yep,
I
yep.
was waiting
So,
to say a word I recognized, and you finally got to naval base, and then I
yep,
recognized it.
yep. So, she lives just north of Malibu, right on the water.
Oh,
And,
nice. So it's sunny.
and
Oh, she doesn't get snowed in like you do in Maine.
correct.
Yeah, she can
Yep.
make media graphics all day long because she rarely loses internet, although they have the wildfires, but still.
They do have the wildfires and the earthquakes and, you know,
Yeah.
some poisonous things that I personally don't have in Maine. Um,
Well, tell me, since you have book two in process, what are the changes that you've learned now that you've been through one book, the whole start to finish writing, rewrites, alphas, betas, and now you've gone to release? What would you do differently? What are you doing differently? And what is the same?
So, one of the things that I'm definitely doing differently is I really am going to be starting earlier in for arcs
Yeah.
and looking for arc readers. Um, I didn't start looking until probably about a month before my release this past time,
Mhm.
and by that time it was almost too late because by the time I did get some, it was time for release, and I'm like, well, this is kind of disappointing. I'll still send them out, and hopefully they can at least review it and maybe get some reviews online. But I think definitely going to spend more time, get it done a little bit earlier. And then also I'm going to keep the some people are like, oh well, you don't need both alpha and beta readers, and I'm like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
I feel
Um,
feel that people that say that may not necessarily know the difference between the two.
And I think that's the truth, is that they don't understand the difference. So like the alpha readers are looking at the big picture. They're looking at the,
deep down into pace, tension, plot holes, inconsistencies. Yeah.
characters, all of it. Like it's just, that's what they do.
Yeah, character arc, and then overall book arc. Yes. To me, that's what your alphas will do.
Yes. And then betas are looking at more the finer details after you've done all of your major rewrites and making sure all the pieces fit together and the characters work well in each scene. And
why did her eyes change? Her eyes used to be brown and now they're blue. Or
yep, exactly. So the little details, the detail oriented.
Yep, exactly.
And so I think, and some people are like, oh, well, that's just 2 rounds of beta. Well, no, not really, because you can't really, once you've had that alpha reader and you have that report in front of you and you have those suggestions and where things are missing, your novel is usually going to go through a major rewrite.
Exactly.
And you're going to be adding some scenes and deleting scenes, and it's going to be major rewrite. And so you can't really say, oh, well, it's 2 beta readers. No, it's an alpha and a beta. And
so has your process changed from book 1 to book 2?
A little bit, yeah. I'm able to.
We have to learn what kind of writer we are, and you think one way, you're like, oh, I'm going to do it this way, and you start to do it that way, but somewhere about the halfway point, you're like, this isn't working for me. And so in book 2 or the subsequent books you write, I feel like you just learn more about yourself as an author and a writer.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, like, so in book 1, when I was writing, I was like, I have to write from start to finish. I have to write from start to finish. I have to write chronologically. And then I also, like, I didn't have much of a, I was like, I have this idea. I know the major points that I want to make, but I didn't have really like a written down, like, okay, I want this to happen and this to happen and this to happen and this to happen. And this time around, I have a notebook and I've been writing down, like, okay, chapter 1, this is what I want the major the major points to have, and then this is what I want to happen within it. But I don't really like write full outlines.
Yeah,
it's more of just like a major point list. And
Hilary, I have to bust your chops a little bit because you're a teacher, and I'm pretty sure you wouldn't teach that.
I know I wouldn't teach that. I know, and that's one of those things. Like, okay, I've had to like revise how I teach the students how to write, because I'm like, okay, so if I'm not going to write that way, I need to be open to them writing the way that they are going to write.
Yeah,
and then we work. And then we work through the revisions process. We work through the writing process, and we work through all those different points, and then they see why their way might not work or what they could change that is different. I always have a reflection process at the end. So with my students, I always have a reflection process so that they can look back on their process. And this isn't about like the story or what worked in the story, what didn't work in the story. This is about the process of how they took.
I like that because I think I'm still emotionally scarred by the 3-act structure. And, you have your little Roman numerals and down, and then you have your opening, and you have your body, and then you have your closing scene, or, the close to the scene. So, yeah, I'm scarred emotionally by all that.
I love the 5 paragraph essay. I'm being so sarcastic.
Oh, I know. That's how we learn. That was like creative writing. There wasn't this like, hero's journey or save the cat or any of that. It was like your 3-act structure. You use it for plays. You use it for musicals. You use it for books. And I'm just like,
yep.
I don't think that's how it goes anymore. There's no beat like 3-act structure, Roman numerals down the side.
Right. right?
Uh-huh.
So now I write down a lot more about like what I want to see in each scene.
Do you still write
And then
chronological?
so no, I don't. I don't write in chronological order anymore.
Okay,
I
as an
I
author, that's growth as a writer, is when you can write a scene over here and figure out how to weave it in.
exactly. So now I write the major scenes, and then I figure out, okay, so how can I connect this to this to this to this, and how, like, what I need to do to connect these scenes together. And I also, I think that's part of the reason why it took me so long to write my first novel, was because I got stuck.
Did you write yourself into a corner?
A little bit, yeah.
Hmm.
I wrote myself into a corner,
And then you
and then
brought it back. You're like, do I go a scene back? Do I go two scenes back? And that's how I got, wrote myself into a corner. Yeah, because you got to reverse it.
exactly. So then I kind of like got frustrated with myself, and I put it away for a little bit. So it took me a lot longer to write this first one, because also I didn't have that sort of like idea of like where it was going. And
Well, you have to marinate on it too, because sometimes you don't know where you got stuck. You don't know how you're going to get out of it. You just got to marinate and think about it.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
And so I definitely, and it's not saying that I don't have those like I wanted it to be spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to just sort of flow and be spontaneous. And I realized that yes, I can still have that even with having more of a structured.
Okay.
Um,
Do you do the starburst? You'd have the idea, and then you have all these little lines that go out from it. Do you remember that?
yeah, I remember that.
So it's almost like your scenes, though, right? So you take this starburst scene, and you got to connect it. So it's almost like that starburst method.
It is kind of like that. I don't personally do that specific, like graphic, but it is very similar.
But do you remember that? That was a long time ago. I think they call it now the snowflake method or something. I don't know.
I honestly don't know. I don't know. Um, yeah, it's very different, because once kids hit high school, they should have these methods under their belt, which they usually don't.
Hilary,
And
to teenagers, they don't.
yeah, yep.
So will you always, is this going to be the start of the series? You said it's going to be the Project Lightning series.
Yep.
How many books in that series do you think?
That's going to be I'm pretty sure it's going to be a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all going to be based upon the same sort of top secret military. Project Lightning is going to be all based on Brenna and her family. So
Okay, so
I've been
the whole storyline, because I was wondering if you're going to have different Greek gods for each book.
Yes. So my first one is Zeus Colony. The second one's going to be Poseidon Colony. And the third one is going to be Hades.
Oh.
I'm going to do the big three,
Yeah.
as they call it in Greek mythology, is the big three, because those are the big three. And so it's going to be each of those, and their colonies are sort of focused on their power. Mm-hmm. So leadership, because Zeus is the leader god, leadership. Poseidon Colony is going to be about the sea, so fishermen in the navy, the naval forces. And then Hades is actually the punishment colony.
Is that the army?
No.
Oh.
The punishment colony. So it's where they send people who are bad.
Okay, so it's like the prisoners, the MPs pick them up. Okay, because everyone always bags on the U.S. Army, so I thought that was going to be him.
That is kind of fun. That would be kind of funny, but no. I actually wrote the sort of references to Hades Colony into the first book. So they all get transported on this big fiery red bus, and that they get picked up, and they get picked up by these huge guards who are like basically it's just, I wrote a whole scene based upon this idea of this bus, and I was like, you know what, that would actually, like, what happens after?
And then you write these, you like nailed it.
I got it.
Yeah,
yep.
It makes you feel great, as you know, because I feel like there's so much discovery and also self-doubt, you know, when it comes to an author. But every now and again, you write that one scene, you're like, nailed it.
Yep.
So I do that.
So it really like hit home for me as far as that one was concerned. And I also plan on writing a duet to Tribulation.
Okay. Will that be after the trilogy is published, or kind of mixed in?
I think I might mix it in. I have some notes on what I want to do next. It's so because if you know anything about the sort of the Christian idea of the tribulation period, there's 7 years of tribulation before, supposedly, before things end, and so this is set 4 years into the future, and I still want to keep with that sort of like that 7 years of tribulation. So I do want it to go into the future, but I don't want it to go too far into the future, if that makes sense.
Because it has to fit the storyline.
It does. It has to fit the storyline and sort of the idea behind it. It's actually kind of funny how I got that idea.
Ooh, share.
I was watching a show on the History Channel called The Nostradamus Effect. Okay. And it was about the rapture. And as I was watching the show on this, they're talking about like what's supposed to happen and what are the signs of it and everything like that. And I sat there and I was like, so what happens after? Because it's not covered. It's not like there's nothing that says like what's supposed to happen after.
No, this is like cut, scene, end of civilization.
Right. There's going to be people left over, and there's going to be this Antichrist, but what actually happens like to those people that are left behind?
Yeah, because you're like, then what? But no one ever talks about that, because the ones that are believers are already partying it up.
Correct.
So no one
They're
ever
like, oh, well,
in the party. Just
I'm going to be on.
When you're in the party, you don't ever think about the ones that were not invited. It's like that.
Yep. So that's where that came from. And it was actually kind of funny how that happened, because I was like, oh my goodness, this was actually a good idea.
Yep. On the back.
Yep.
I know, but I love the History Channel because they're so well done. But they are thought-provoking, right? So they give you like, they're pretty objective, if I could say that word. But it does lead to like, what else? What have they not covered? Like painting out
exactly
lines.
So, exactly.
So that would put you into writing it next year and then publishing it in 26.
Yes. Yep.
Well, girl, get on it.
I know, right? I'm hoping to be able to publish at least one per year. That's like my goal for now, and we'll see how it goes. Again, I would love to be a writer as a career, but I don't see that like at this current moment.
One day. But it's also not kind of a blueprint, because if you think about it, you have really the next 4 books, 5, because when you're writing. So the next 5 books are already planned out, so to speak, loosely. And that could be the next 5 years. I mean, how exciting.
I know. It's exciting that I have this. And then I also have my trusty little notebook of ideas as they come up in my head. I sort of write them down and like jot down ideas, like little things about them, like what do I want to want this to happen. And so I do have that as well. It's just sort of like,
that's your idea notebook.
exactly. Mine is it's white and it's got polka dots on it.
Oh,
it's all pretty.
Of course, because we like that visual, artistic prettiness.
Yes.
So that has been a very fast hour. Do you have time for rapid fire questions before we wrap up?
Sure.
All right. Do you prefer reading paperback or an e-reader?
Both.
I love both too, but paperbacks take up so much room.
I know they take up so much room. I actually do a lot of my reading on the Kindle, on my phone, on the Kindle app, and it's mostly because I'm broke and I have Kindle Unlimited. So I just get my stories that way.
I know, but that works. Yes. Okay. Second question: are you a plotter or a pantser?
I am in the process of changing. So I'm sort of a plotzer. Again, both. My first book was pantser. It was flying by the seat of my pants. And then as I learned, I need to be more thoughtful about my plot. So I became more of a plotter, but I still like that, like not knowing what's going to happen, what's going to exactly happen as I'm writing. I know a lot of people who are plotters, they plot details down to like I'm not that type of person. I can't be.
Ditto. That is not us. Do you write in first person or third person?
So Tribulation is written in third person, and Zeus Colony is written in first person.
Present or past?
So I believe past tense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Past tense for my third person, but I primarily write in present tense for my first person. So they're very different styles.
Very different.
And it's actually something that I learned in my school, in one of my writing classes, was that what would happen if you changed your tenses completely. Like I had to rewrite my opening scene in 4 different ways or whatnot. So I wrote it in first person present, first person past, third person present, third person past.
And that's how you decide.
Yes.
Good for you. Mad respect. That's hard.
It is hard. It was very difficult to do. So I realized that it really depends on the story.
Yeah. Well, and also the author's talent, because not every author can do that.
Mm-hmm. And I think I think that's part of it is the teacher in me. I can look at different perspectives.
I know. I love that. Of course, it's a teacher in you. Are you plot driven or character driven?
A little bit of both. It really depends on depends on the story. I love to be character driven because that's what I'm writing about, is that it's the character.
Mm-hmm.
So the character is the one that really matters.
Yeah.
So I think I'm more character driven than I am plot driven. So I think I guess that's a good enough answer.
Like finally, character driven. Do you write alone, write with a partner, or write in sprints?
I typically write alone. Mm-hmm. I have done the NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo. And written in some of those they have like the little Google Meets where you can write as
y'all can sprint.
Yeah, the sprints.
Yeah.
Yes, you can sprint together. I have done those a couple of times. It's not usually my cup of tea. I'm more of an introvert.
And yet you're here with me. Hey.
I know. So I've realized that there are parts of me that are extrovert, and I'm in an extrovert's job.
Oh, for sure.
But I am when I am home and I'm behind my computer and I'm either writing or editing, or I'm very introverted. I don't want to go anywhere. Uh, and I don't want to go out and and it I guess it's just that I'm an introvert in an extrovert's world.
That's so funny. So alone for the writing. Do you outline or discovery writing? We kind of talked about that already.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that. I have a basic outline,
Mm-hmm.
and then I am more discovering as it goes. I do more scene writing, and then discovering how to put it together.
Do you write in silence or with music?
Music, absolutely. I love music. It's like my second love. I had considered as a younger person becoming a music teacher, but I realized that that while I do love music, and I do love teaching, they don't. For me, I don't feel like they go together. I want them to be separate in my world.
That makes sense, though. Keeping them separate is, I mean, because they're precious in their own ways.
Yes, absolutely. But I love music. My husband and I are going on our date night and going and seeing a concert tomorrow night. So,
Oh, have fun. I know you will.
yes, we will.
Okay, do you write with a deadline or at your own pace? We covered that.
Yes, we covered that. It's mostly at my own pace, but I try to keep loose deadlines.
Series or standalones, which will you write?
Series.
And then historical setting, present day, or future settings?
Future setting.
Future
setting. Future all the way.
Tell everybody where they can buy your book and where they can catch up with you online.
So for online presence, I am on Instagram and TikTok and
Your handle?
And Facebook. I'm at Hilary Lisee 82, and I believe TikTok has author in there somewhere. I can't remember exactly. I'm sorry, but I do have. I also have a website. It's hilarylisee.com. So that is very helpful for finding me. So my book is available on Amazon. It's available at Barnes & Noble and Kobo and Apple Books.
Great. Well, this has been a fast hour. I'm going to have you back for the second book when it comes out as part of your release.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm so glad to finally have you on.
Yes, and I think that hopefully we can connect closer to the book launch this next time.
I am actually booked out until February of 2026 already, if you can believe. I know. So you pick the time and month, and I'll send you some dates.
Awesome. Sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Hilary. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.